go check out the Okanagan Heritage Museum's new Weird and Wonderful exhibit.
Okay, so I actually didn't film a whole lot while I was there because there were other people there. But I did take a lot of pictures, so let's go over the pictures that I took of some of the interesting exhibits. So the first thing you see here when you walk into the exhibit is this massive Triceratops skull. Now, this is not actually the real fossil itself, it is instead a plaster cast made from the real fossil that is on display at Tyrrell Museum in Alberta. But this is actually a cast of the original that was found in, I'm pretty sure it said Drumheller. Now, this is how it was before it was hung up. This is, you can see kind of disarticulated, the jaws on the floor over there, and then there's the rest of the skull. Casts are made for a couple different reasons. One is if it's hanging like it is in the museum right now. Fossils are rocks, and rocks are stupid heavy, and fossils are often actually pretty delicate, so you do not want a super heavy and also super delicate skull hanging from the ceiling. Another reason is so they can be distributed to other museums without having to move or risk the integrity of the original fossil itself. The other main thing you see when you enter this exhibit is the iron lung. Now, iron lungs were used way back when polio was a super big problem, and when you caught a certain strain of polio, all of your muscles would be paralyzed, including your diaphragm, which is responsible for breathing. So, iron lungs were used to help the individual that was paralyzed by polio to be able to actually breathe. This is a walk around of the iron lung, as well as the underneath of the Triceratops skull, which is pretty neat, all the way around this guy. And the guy who actually donated and lived in this holds the record for the longest person ever to live in an iron lung. I'm not sure if that's just in Canada or if it's in the whole world, but he lived in there for like 20 years, which is kind of crazy. This is a shot of Lake Okanagan, and what's really interesting is that this is actually an early example of Photoshop. The card over there says that the photographer couldn't get the exact shot he wanted all in one go, so he overlaid a bunch of different images that made up the actual shot that we see there. So not everything in this photo is actually present in the shot itself. They was just put there by Photoshop. This is another really cool one. Now this isn't actually from the Okanagan. It doesn't have anything really to do with the Okanagan, but it's still in the collections. As you can see here in the notes, it's the Dedak Merak. It's a traditional mask from Indonesia. It's not from the Okanagan, but the people that put together the museum, or the exhibit at least, thought it was really cool. So the Weird and Wonderful exhibit itself is a temporary exhibit with each of the artifacts not really having an overarching theme, but instead chosen by each of the staff members at the museum for one reason or other, being weird or wonderful, or usually both. So there's no real cohesive theme, it's just stuff that all of the people working there thought was really cool. There's also some mystery items on display, like this one that doesn't have a card where it is exactly, it just has a bunch of question marks, and you are supposed to guess. Leave in the comments what you think this one is. This one is interesting. It's called a sun lamp. It was used in medicine to give ultraviolet rays to people who had a vitamin D deficiency and who couldn't go outside to get sunlight, so this helped people be exposed to sunlight who couldn't actually be, and was used in a lot of different medical contexts. This is an equator crossing certificate. It was given to sailors in the Canadian Navy once they crossed the equator. Here's a bit more of a close-up of what it says. You can pause the video, zoom in, and read it, but basically it's like, congrats on being a good sailor, here's a fancy piece of paper. You win sailing, you win the Navy. Big fan of this one personally. This is a vintage leech jar, which is exactly what it sounds like. This is where people would keep medical leeches. Here's a bit more about the medical leech jar and a little bit about more medical equipment that the museum possesses. This one is pretty weird. These are pufferfish lamps, and again, it's exactly what it says on the tin. They're lamps made of pufferfish. Apparently this was weirdly popular a while ago. People would genuinely make lamps out of pufferfish, and they would light up and be lamps. Here's a little bit more information about the pufferfish lamps. Kind of weird, but really cool. This is an Atlas moth. Again, not native to Canada. This one was found in, I think it said, Japan. Largest moth in the world, not native here, but the previous curator has it. So there's the moth itself and the cocoon that it makes out of leaves. This one is pretty cool. It is a Victorian mourning and memorial object, and the decorations are all made with the deceased individual's hairs of these two individuals, I think. And this is the translation of the words that it says on the actual artifact. You can pause to read. It was in German originally. This is the English translation. This is an old prosthetic arm. You can really see how far prosthetics have come since this, but back then this was considered to be a pretty high-end one. This is a vintage wedding dress bought in Calgary a while ago, and what's really cool is that the person who donated it, she's still alive and is still happily married. It also comes with the shoes that she wore and the tiara. This big old thing is a scanning electron microscope and all of the accompanying software used to be able to visualize really, really stupidly small things. I've used a lot of microscopes before. I've never used an electron microscope because I haven't had the reason, or my university hasn't had the facilities to just let students use it, but this is really cool. I think this is kind of an older one. I think the new models don't need that whole big setup as far as I'm aware, but it's still really neat. A slight trigger warning for the next one. I am going to show the two-headed lamb taxidermy. It was born in the area locally a while ago. If you feel like having a good cry, you can pause to read the two-headed calf poem. Now, this is not a calf, it is a lamb. Yeah, if you feel like getting a little bit in the feels, give this a read, but I am going to show the lamb, so if you don't want to see a two-headed lamb taxidermy, skip ahead or scroll away. And here it is, like it says, it was born locally. Now, most of the time, two-headed mammals, at least, don't survive very long. Two-headed reptiles are weirdly a bit better at surviving. They still don't have a super long life expectancy, but things like two-headed turtles and snakes and lizards do actually sometimes survive into adulthood. Now, these are interesting. These are a bunch of just little unidentified objects that the people at the museum showed to kids and asked the kids to identify them. So take a moment to pause, see if you can guess what any of these are. Here is another one, and I actually don't think I got a picture of number 1. I got a picture of 2 through, 9? I didn't get a picture of number 1. Oops. If you zoom in, I did not get a very good quality picture of this, my bad. If you pause the video and zoom in, you can see the guesses that the kids made and what the object actually is. Whoops. Down to the last couple objects that I took pictures of, this is just a Furby, and it's here to show that museums don't only just collect really old stuff, it's more modern and culturally relevant stuff is collected too and stored in the museums for a time that they will become old artifacts. These are just decorative swords. They're not the most functional, I don't think. They are ceremonial and just for decorative purposes, but we love a good sword. Here is another mystery object. Take a second, guess what you think it is. I'm just gonna tell you this one. This is a infant gas mask. Back when people were afraid of being gassed, you would put just the entire baby in this whole thing. And finally, we have some World War II era jokes on Hitler and wipe out Hitler. Love it, love a good anti-fascist. Here's another image. This was used to basically dunk on fascism. I think we need to bring that back a little bit, perhaps. Now, this isn't everything that's in the Okanagan Heritage Museum. This is just the temporary exhibit. There is a main exhibit that stays there throughout the rest of the year, but I didn't really go through that one. I just went through the new Weird and Wonderful exhibits.